Hashem svasai tiftach ufi agitol asacha. We're now in the third parak of Daniel. We've gotten a taste. We have a feel for what this Sefer is really all about, but let's go deeper. What are we supposed to take from this? Remember, anything that is written down is for us, Ladoros. It's to teach us. It's going to impact on our lives many, many generations later. Nebuchadnezzar in this parak, he is Avad Silem Di Dahav. He makes a golden statue. The golden statue is 60 cubits high by 6 cubits broad, and he sets it up Mimidinas Bavel and Bavel. So on the one hand, one would think, okay, we're continuing in this story. It's a very interesting story, but let's go deeper. He just was given the opportunity of a lifetime. Someone told him what he dreamt and what it was going to reveal. You go to get a bracha from a Rebbe, and you're told exactly what it is, and you feel uplifted, you feel like you're on top of the mountain, that everything, and he's of course given not exactly the best of news. And that happens oftentimes where we have an opportunity to see the light, and we see it and it's not exactly what we're looking for. So what does he do? He decides, you know what, this isn't for me. I know that these Jews, they were the only ones that were able to answer, and that they're the smartest, and that they know what they're talking about, and that there is a Hashem, the all-powerful, who is behind the scenes and behind them. But you know what? I will not accept this. Instead, he decides it's not only going to be that the statue, that golden head, is going to be mine. Instead, he decides, you know what? It's going to be more than that. I am going to stick it where the sun don't shine, and I'm building a whole huge golden statue, and it is going to remain, and I am not going to be makabel the information that I was given, because I am everything. Now, is that the right approach? Stick it to where the sun don't shine? Not so sure. Let's see what happens. And so ultimately, that's exactly what he does. And he not only wants for himself to believe this nonsense, but he sends word to everyone, to the governors and the counselors and the treasurers and the judges and the officers and all the officials, that we are going to dedicate this amazing statue to me, Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar, we know, there's a Gemara that talks about, the Midrash says that Nebuchadnezzar was really, a long time ago, he was Nimrod. And he had a conversation with Avram Avinu, where he said, Avram Avinu, bow down to my fire god. And Avram said, okay, if I'm bowing down to your fire god, good news, I can also bow down to your water god, because the water god is going to put out the fire. And if I'm going to bow down to the water god, good news, you know what else I could bow down to? The wind god. And then I could bow down to the people, because people can somehow capture the wind and use it effectively. So that's why Avram Avinu was thrown into the Kivshan Aish. He was thrown into the fiery furnace. And because Nimrod was like, no, you're going to believe what I tell you to believe, because it's my kabod, it's my machlas, and I know what I'm talking about. And even though it made no sense, and that he could have seen the light, because what Avram was teaching him was, wait a second, why bow down? Why give kavod, respect, to the gold and the silver, to the wind and the moon? Just find the source. Find what's truly meaningful in life and bow down to that. Give credence to that. Be subservient to the highest power in something that is powerful. And did he learn his lesson? No. Avram Avinu came out unscathed. And the Gilgal of Nimrod was Nebuchadnezzar. Once again, he had seen the light, someone who made sense. There's going to be powers, and look at the major power who's going to knock down all the other powers that seemingly think that they're powerful. We just had that. And so what does Nebuchadnezzar? It's like Vayachbir Hashem Esleiv Paro. He just closes his heart to what he knows to be true. He saw it, he heard it, he felt it. And so now he's building something that is completely gold, and it has so much power, and he's making everybody, you are commanded, and in every language, Umaya Lishanaya, You have to know that when you hear the sounds of the musical horn and pipe and on the bagpipe and all the instruments, which again, in contrast to David HaMelech, who says, take all your instruments and use it in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Tziltzlei Trua, the Tziltzlei Shama, right? But here, whenever you hear it, you're going to bow to this amazing statue that got set up. And whoever doesn't is going to be thrown into, no, he doesn't use a different punishment back into that fiery furnace. And of course, that's exactly what happened. Everybody's so nervous. Everyone's on the bandwagon. They don't want to lose out on the opportunity to worship gold, right? Have we really evolved? Have we really evolved that everyone is willing to put what they know to be true on the back burner and just bow down to the gold? And ultimately, that's exactly what got set up. And but in light of the situation, we have what also happens. And what is that? That there was some costume that came forward and they spoke Lashon Hara about the Jews because nobody likes it when someone is above them. And they spoke and they told Nebuchadnezzar, when everyone is bowing down, there are some people who don't, and they should be thrown into the fiery furnace. And he gives over who they are, and who is it? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who are, of course, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They didn't serve you. They did not bow down to the gold. They have an ulterior something, and they're not buying in to this idea of what the rest of society is buying into, that you should be bowing down and giving credence to the gold. Well, Nebuchadnezzar, in a raging fury, he's so upset. He orders that these men should be brought to him. Now remember, these men are the smartest. They are the wisest. They are the ones that really talk the talk and walk the walk. Now, Daniel is not here. So the question is, where is Daniel in all of this? So the answer is that Daniel was sent away, either by Hashem, because Hashem wanted Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to be able to handle this situation by themselves so we can see who they are without Daniel. But, or Nebuchadnezzar did, or Hashem did, but either which way, he's not present, and they're brought before the king. And they say, is this true? Nebuchadnezzar asks, is it true that you're not willing to serve and worship that gold that I set up? And that is a big key. Gold that I set up. I gave value. The gold that I want you to be bowing down to is just what man created. It clearly doesn't have a purpose, and it can't create itself, and it certainly isn't a creator. But what do they reply? Now, he says, all you have to do is just as soon as you hear the music, you bow down. That's all. Otherwise, you're going to be thrown into a fiery furnace. Like, what would be the purpose of that? And what God, what power can save you from this, from my power? And they answer him, Nebuchadnezzar, we have nothing to say. It's just that if it has to be so, that we have to be thrown into the fiery furnace, we can, because we are absolutely not going to bow to this, and we believe that Hashem will save us from your power. Now, let's just take a detour for a moment. When they knew that this was happening, they asked Yechezkel, and Yechezkel told them, go hide. Go hide, my boys. There's no reason. Now, there's even a machlokas as to whether this was true of Avodah Zarah, or this was just, like we've been saying, a reaction in Nebuchadnezzar with this terrible dream, and he's just sticking it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's, and sticking it to fate. Like, you think that this is going to happen to me, it ain't happening to me. So it's not even Avodah Zarah. So it's not even perhaps a Yaharek Bal Yavor situation that we have to give our life for instead of killing, instead of avodah zarah, and instead of inappropriate relations. So it's not that. So it's just now the principle of the matter. So they're willing to die on the principle, and Yechezkel says, go hide. And they say, no, we're not going to go hide because the Jews need us. We need to be a light, a beacon of light, and a source of knowledge to the nation. Our people are bowing down, and that's not okay. We're headed in the wrong direction as a society. And our job with every opportunity comes responsibility. And our responsibility, because we are on a very high level, and we've reached a very high level in this gullus. We are successful. We're children, okay? They're 15 or maybe a little bit older at this point, but they're children nevertheless, or they started off as children. But the idea is that they will not, even when HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't say that they're going to be saved. And here in this pasuk, they're saying, no, we believe that Hashem will be able to save us. Their emunah is so strong. Their emunah, which is reminiscent of just one generation ago. One generation ago in America, when people did not have a job come Shabbos because they walked from their job. They left their jobs because they felt that they couldn't work on Shabbos. And they stuck it, and they just said no. And that same Moser Nefesh, the Moser Nefesh that we started with Avram Avinu, who was willing to go into the Kiddush HaNa'esh, he genetically predetermines that his people would be Moser Nefesh people. That we do the hard thing, that we take the hard, high road, because that's the right thing to do. And so they didn't have from Yechezkel a seal and a stamp of if it's going to be okay, but they said it to Nebuchadnezzar as though it had been signed and sealed by the Rebbe and delivered that they were going to be okay. And so ultimately they say, it's okay, we're willing to go into that fiery furnace, but we are not going to bow down. We don't believe in the gold. We don't believe in what you are, your philosophical ideology. And so Nebuchadnezzar is so filled with rage because he is, again, narcissistic. It's all about me. How can you hurt my kavod? I'm sticking it to this power of the dream. I'm going to stick it. No, this is not going to happen. You are taking away from what I thought to be true. There's no flexibility in his thought process. He's so filled with rage, which reminds us, again, of what happened in Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim with the frogs. Because on the one hand, those frogs were so Moser Nefesh, they jumped into the fiery furnaces in order to do the right thing, to be a makkah, to be one of the frogs. They sacrificed themselves. But on the other hand, what else happened during the frog? The Mitzrim saw that every time they hit the frog multiplied. And they were so angry and so out of touch with reality that what did they do? They literally kept hitting the frogs. That's so dumb. If you're going to hit the frog and it's going to make more and produce a multitude of frogs, why wouldn't you just stop hitting the frogs? But that's what anger did. And so you see the level, all of the nuances that remind us of what happens in Mitzrayim, which again leads us to the idea that Yosef in Mitzrayim, it's all part and parcel. It's like a repeat performance. There are so many images that are so similar, and ultimately that's what happens. They're bound and their hands and their legs, and they're thrown into the fiery furnace, and they're with their clothing on, and that's it. And not only that, but Nebuchadnezzar raises the heat to this crazy proportion 7 times as much. Why 7 times? Because he really felt, you know what, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be in charge of the fire. But 7 times the fire, I'm going to go to the utmost in fireness, whatever that word is, and he won't even be able to do that. And of course, what happens is these men are not a drop. Now, he asks the man who throws them in, so did we not throw in 3 men? Like, what's happening? Why is they're just walking around. Their chains have gotten off of them, and they are not singed or scorched at all, and they're walking around. And did you not bind them? And he's like, no, I did. And didn't we throw 3 men in? And it's like, yeah, but why does it look like there are 4? And here is one of the most beautiful parts of the story. The unlooked part, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent Gabriel in there with them. He wasn't going to let them do this by themselves. He never lets us fall by ourselves. There's always a malach there, just letting us know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. And that if we can look and tap into that malach, we're in a good position. But that fourth one was there with them, because the end of the story of the Midrash with Yecheskel is that, you know what happened? Hashem said to Yecheskel, of course I'm going to save them. Of course they're going to be okay. Now they didn't know it, but we do. And so nothing happened to them. And ultimately they come out and they have to be pulled out. Why they have to be pulled out? Because they didn't want to give non-kavod. They know exactly who they're up against with this king. They've won the battle, but sometimes you can win the battle but lose the war. So they just stay there for as long as is needed, and they come out and they're pulled up and they're out. And that's when Nebuchadnezzar, the creep Nebuchadnezzar, the one who's all about power and gold and might, he says, blessed be this God, the God of these people, who sent his angel to save his servants, who these kids who trusted them, and for the rest of their life, they should just know that they were willing to risk their lives to serve their own God. And anyone who blasphemizes, who says anything bad about their God, I'm going to tear them limb by limb and I'm going to break their house. I mean, the guy is just all brute and a bully. So even when he's having his moments, it's in his own brutish way, because there's no other God who can save in this way. And if he can see that, so can we. Right? Only Hashem, in his infinite mercy, can save and can create people who are just so in love with him and believe in him. And so the king promoted Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego to a higher position in Babel, and everyone was given a big Kiddush Hashem. And it's amazing. Now, the next part of the parak, these last three psukim, really don't belong here. But of course, it wasn't us who determined what the parak, where it should end. It really goes to the next parak, and that again, that's Gullus for you. Right at the end of an amazing story, you think that, okay, so now we're going to live happily ever after in Gullus. We don't, and things get all they get all messed up because we're in Gullus. And so our parak is messed up, and now there's going to be another dream of Nebuchadnezzar, and just these last three psukim just kind of, our way to know that we're still in Gullus. But the final idea is really this. What ultimately happened to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah is we never hear from them again. This is it. This was their day in the sun, this amazing story, dying al Kiddush Hashem. Perhaps because Hashem says there are going to be a lot of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariahs. There's going to be a whole Holocaust full of them. There's going to be people in Eretz Yisrael who go into the IDF, who live in Eretz Yisrael in places that are dangerous. You are a nation of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariahs. And so, yes, we don't really need to know what happens, because there are going to be so many more of them. And that's my take on it. Other people say that because they had an ayin hara on their back, they didn't live productive lives after that. And the power that they were able to do to Klal Yisrael, but in the end, were in Galus, and their sinas chinam, and Klal Yisrael didn't do great by them, and so they weren't successful. And a third interpretation is that they made Aliyah, they had a wonderful family, and they left Babel and they went to Eretz Yisrael. So the messages are really clear, and that is the messages that we can take of Emunah, the message of Bitachon, the message of Hashem in his infinite wisdom and his infinite mercy always sends a malach to be with us during the good times and the bad times. But ultimately, it's really how we see things. Are we bowing down to the golden? Are we being what the Bnei Israel were literally subservient to, which is the pressures and the fears that you need to get ahead, and the gold and what it represents? Or are we able to take a stand, see what truly is in front of us and find the truest value in that the Creator who creates is the truest value, not a few of his minimal creations.